Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. My name is Cameron Bailey. I am the artistic director here at TIFF. I'm glad to see so many of you here. We're here tonight for the world premiere of the new film by Peter Farrelly, Green Book. Before we get started, we want to just take a moment to acknowledge where we are tonight. This is a land that has been taken care of for thousands of years by the First Nations of this country. It's the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. Anybody from the Mississaugas in the house tonight? Or just applauding? Okay, maybe from Mississauga. For those out-of-towners, that's a suburb. This film is eligible for our most important prize. That's the Grolsch People's Choice Award. That's the award that you vote for, so please remember to vote. You can do that by going online to tiff.net/vote. Big thanks to Universal Pictures for bringing us this film. Great partners of ours. Thank you. And when Universal called up about Green Book, we had been tracking this film for a while, and we were very excited that it was going to be ready. It tells a story that can feel like it is just speculative fiction. If you can imagine, there was a time when if you crossed a border, you would be subject to abuse, discrimination, violence, even death. It's a good thing that doesn't happen anymore. That border was the Mason-Dixon line between the north and south of the United States. And if you were black, that was a dangerous border to cross. But it's a border that the musician Don Shirley chose to cross in 1962. This is his story. It's a remarkable, true story, and I am so pleased that Peter Farrelly has brought it to the screen. And you might be thinking, Peter Farrelly? Well, he is a filmmaker who's made some of the most iconic comedies in film history, including Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene, Shallow Hal, The Heartbreak Kid, and Dumb and Dumber 2. T.O. But if you've been watching Peter's films closely, you'll know that in all of that crazy, outrageous comedy, there is always heart, there's always emotion, there's always a deep understanding of his characters, and that means that he's equally able to tell a drama and have it work just as well. And so we were thrilled to see this film. We wanted to have it, and we're so pleased that we're here presenting the world premiere tonight to you. And I want you to join me in welcoming the director, Peter Farrelly.
Thanks so much. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I want to thank Cameron. This is an unbelievable honor to be here. He didn't have to mention Dumb and Dumber 2, but I do appreciate the intro. No, I want you to know, in all my years in the film business, this is my first film festival. And I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. I've been thinking about this for months and praying before that we would get in here, because of all the film festivals in the world, this is the big one. Thank you so much, and I'm not going to go on because we're going to talk afterwards, but I do want to introduce the people that have made this happen, starting with the people at Participant Media. Jeff Skoll, fantastic, David Lindy, Robert Kessel. I want to thank everybody at Universal, Donna Langley, of course, Jim Hurwitz, I want to thank the people at Amblin, Steven Spielberg, you've heard of him, Jeb Brody, the people at Cinetech, John Sloss, Steve Farneth, and I have to thank my manager Jeff Oken, Joe Mann, my agent, and mostly lawyers get a bad rap, but my lawyers are the hardest working lawyers in the world, and I can't tell you how many times this thing almost fell apart, and if not for Cindy Gessner and Peter Grossman, I would not be here today. So let's start with the producers, leading off with the probably the greatest woman on the planet, Octavia Spencer. Then I will bring out Jim Burke. Jim Burke, please. Yeah. Charlie Wessler. Charlie Wessler. This next guy I have to take a moment to talk about because I left him out of the last introduction, and he is probably the most important guy at the studio to help get this made, and that's Jonathan King. Jonathan King, thank you very much. Then I don't want to leave anybody out. We will go Ted Virtue. Ted Virtue. Got the ball rolling. And I will introduce the writers, starting with Nick Vallelonga. This story is based on his father's journey. Nick Vallelonga. And the other writer and the guy who brought me this idea is Brian Curry. Thank God for Brian Curry. Let's see. Kwame Parker, where are you? Kwame's one of our producers and we can't find him. Kwame Parker, big hand for Kwame. Get up here. He's too modest to come on stage, so we have to drag him up. And Kwame's family's here. Thanks so much for being here, Kwame. I want to introduce our unbelievable composer, Chris Bowers. Chris Bowers. Okay, let's keep going here. Then a few other actors here. Let me see. I will start with Sebastian Maniscalco. Woo! Sebastian here. Sebastian Maniscalco. You got to be here somewhere. Oh, is that him up? Okay. Another modest man. Probably the best stand-up comic in the world today. Sebastian Maniscalco. Okay. Mike Hatton. Are you up here? Mike Hatton. There you go. Lindsay Bryce. Where are you? Lindsay Bryce. There you are. Okay. Is Demeter here? Demeter Marinoff. Where are you? He came, okay. And Joe Cortese. Joe Cortese. There you go. Quinn Duffy. Quinn Duffy, where are you? And I think we're getting to the end here, but let's not forget, where are we here? I want to get the order right. Okay, Linda Cardellini, unbelievable. She is the heart and soul of the movie. We're going to go right in here. And the wonderful, unbelievable, the only guy I've met who's nicer than the Dalai Lama, Mahershala Ali. And finally, the man that every woman on the planet hates, Viggo Mortensen. Okay. All right, thanks so much. Enjoy it, and we'll see you afterwards.
Please join me in welcoming the writers, Nick Vallelonga, Brian Curry, actors, Linda Cardellini and Octavia Spencer, producer, Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali, and the director, Peter Farrelly.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to all of you on this film. Terrific work across the board. Congratulations. Peter, I want to begin with you. Back when we were all watching There's Something About Mary, inside the mind of the man who made that, was there always the mind of the man who would make Green Book? Was this story, this kind of filmmaking, always inside of you?
You know, I started as a novelist, so but I liked writing comedies. I had a good time, and I was often asked, do you think you'll ever do a more dramatic piece? And I always said, yeah, like, you know, when it happens, when the universe brings it to me. I never planned things. I probably should have when they'd done Dumb and Dumber 2. No, I'm kidding. But no, it's when things drop in your lap and you say, oh, that's my next thing. And this happened when I ran to Brian Curry about 3 years ago. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm writing a screenplay. And he told me this story. And I was like, that's a home run. And I couldn't stop thinking about it for a couple months. I'd be lying in bed thinking, I can't wait to read this script Brian's working on. And driving in my car, finally I called him. I said, how's that script coming? He said, what script? I said, the one you told me about it. He said, which one? I said, the one with the concert pianist and the bouncer. And he said, oh, we haven't started it yet. I said, well, can I write it with you? Let's start Monday. And then Nick and Brian and I got together and wrote. I'd never met Nick before, and the three of us sat down and did it. So I guess it was there.
Thank you. Nick, Brian, I want to ask you guys about this story. This is your father's own story, and you guys wrote it together with Peter. If you could talk a little bit about just finding the heart of the story and especially the relationship between the two men.
I can't talk after this. Are you kidding? Are you joking? It was a story, you know, my father told since I was a kid. I always knew I wanted to do it at some point. It was just a matter of, like Pete said, it just happened when it happened. And Brian and I got together to talk about doing something. I said, well, you know, maybe the story about my father. He's like, what story about your father? And I told him. He goes, are you nuts? He goes, you've never made this movie before? And like Pete said, he brought it to Pete, and, you know, everything aligned. And I always knew it had the heart. I knew it was an amazing story, and it just turned out even better than I could have imagined.
Yeah. I've known Nick for years. I've known Nick for about 30 years, and I knew his father as well, who was a sweet guy, but a product of his time. And his whole world was his apartment and his family. And we've been lucky enough to bring the world into now, you know, your family, and realize, you know, a guy can change, a person can change if they walk in another person's shoes, and really them becoming friends for the rest of their lives. It's an amazing story. and just so happy to be involved with it, you know. Anytime you're with in a Pete Fairley movie, I might add, the sets are always fantastic. People are so nice. It's so collaborative. If you really want to know Tony Vallelonga, just watch this movie. Viggo was Tony. I'm telling you right now. And Mahershala is the nicest guy I ever met and the best actor in the world. So.
All right, well, let's hear from Viggo and Mahershala. And I want to hear a little bit about taking on the roles, and it's also establishing the chemistry, the relationship between these two men who become friends. They sure don't start out that way, but they develop something over the course of the story.
Viggo and I met during the award season in the 2016, beginning 2017. And it was during the course of a lot of dinners and a lot of banquets and brunches. And you meet people, you meet them for like 30 seconds, 5 minutes. A long conversation is like a 10-minute conversation in that world. And I saw Viggo at this brunch. We talked for about a half hour. And we absolutely clicked, and at the end, he says, yeah, we should, like, you know, work together sometime. I'm like, yes, you know, I would love that, you know, and just, I respect his work so much, and he's a better person than he is an actor, so, yeah. And he's a hell of an actor, please, but, yeah, so that's how I think we had chemistry going into it is why I mentioned that. And we spent a good like 10, 12 hours just combing through the script and looking at scenes together, like sitting down with Pete and at the table in Pete's apartment. He was working on his weight, trying to pick it up, eating his pizza. Mahershala, you want some? I'm like, I'm good. So yeah, that's how we basically kind of connected and started.
No, when I knew that Mahershala was going to play Doc Shirley, I was like, wow, this is really going to be something. But I loved the script. When I saw the script, I was surprised that Pete Fairley wrote this with a guy named Brian Curry and a guy named Nick Vallelonga. Pete Fairley's going to direct this. I'm like, wow, it's like, it's funny reading certain things, but it's not funny, it's a different kind of funny. And it's a really great story. The first time I read it, I had to read it immediately again. I was like, wow, this is a story. It's basically about seemingly very different people that end up spending time together, learning about each other, learning to understand each other, whether they set out wanting to or not. And I thought, how great for any time, but especially for the times we're in. What a good story this is. I read it a third time. But I was also looking, then the third time I'm really thinking, okay, because first comes story and then comes the character that somebody wants you to play. And I thought, he is great. He's funny. He's like, it's a really big challenge. I like this. I love this relationship between these two characters. I love the family, everything about it. But I don't think, I'm aware of the fact that some of our finest actors are Italian American, and there are a lot of great portrayals of Italian Americans out there, frankly. And I was wary about that, and I said it to Pete. I said, it's really great, but I don't know. Pete's very convincing. He's very convincing. Ask Universal, ask Participant, and ask all of us here, But so I was like, okay, if you really think so, and And all his ideas sounded great. I was like, but I was extremely nervous until we sat down and spent those hours together, and then it started. And when I got to know Nick better, frankly, and his family, and when they started to share with me what Tony was like and what his relationship, even recordings, him talking about Doc Shirley talking about Tony, pictures, just this wealth of information, which I would have never been able to put together. I don't think we would have had the relationship on screen without all that information you guys shared. So, anyway, I'm certainly glad I didn't chicken out, and I'm very happy to be here. It's amazing to see this movie with you guys. I'm so happy about this movie. It's such a good story, and I can't wait for my family and my friends to see it. They're gonna have to wait till November, unfortunately. But yeah, thank you all for such a warm reception.
Thank you, Viggo.
Just a little add-on to that. The first time Viggo came and met my family, my brother has a restaurant called Tony Lips in New Jersey. You know, I still come by, maybe we'll have something to eat. He ate for 8 hours straight. And I said,
It was hard,
he has
man.
become my father. He actually has this thing.
That's a committed actor right there. Linda, let me ask you, you had to play a character who goes through her own change over the course of the story. Is Cardellini an Italian-American name by any chance? So first of all, how did Viggo do? And what was it like to play a woman of that particular time with the attitudes of that time?
I loved it. I loved the story, like everybody. And I was so fortunate because Nick's mom, I got to speak to everybody. I got to speak to Nick, of course, but also his extended family, which you see in the film. At the family table is his two of his uncles, his mom's brother, his dad's brother, his brother. And so we had, like Viggo said, we had this wealth of information. And to play her in the 60s, I think the difference between her and I think, would be that I work. My family's at home right now, and my daughter's dad is with her, and I have to leave. But for her, he has to leave, which is a tough decision for her. She's happy for him that he has the job, and they need it more than anything, so there's really no saying no to it. But it's still heartbreaking for her, because I don't think they really spent that much time apart, unless they had to. But for me, it was really great, and Nick's whole family was so open and generous with everything. And I felt like I knew her because, I'm Italian-American. I've grown, all the kids I grew up with were, Italian, Irish. We all grew up in Catholic school, Mexican. We all had these huge families. So I felt like I really understood that dynamic, and it was really fun to play. Viggo wants me to, so I was talking to Nick, and I said, I was trying to, you're trying to grab for all these things in an actor. You're trying to think of, how to make the character. What did she talk like? What did she laugh like? Everybody talked about how she had a huge laugh, and then everybody talked about she was always smiling. And I said, I feel like I know her. When's her birthday? Just out of curiosity. And he said, June 25th, and that is my birthday.
Are you serious? Nice casting, Peter. Octavia, you're a producer on this film as well. The last time we saw you on the festival screen, it was with a movie called The Shape of Water. Congratulations on that. You seem to pick them very well. Can you talk a little bit about how you got involved in this project and why?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I had the great pleasure of working with Jonathan King and Jim Burke and participant for The Help. And, Jonathan and I have friends, and we all get together for Thanksgiving, and he told me, I have something I want you to read. I would love to see if you'd want to be a part of it. And I read it thinking there was going to be a part. And I'm reading, he was like, well, there's no part. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But no, he asked me to be a consultant because, and this is what I found very interesting. He said, in the room of executives, there were a lot of white men, and none of them were from the South. And I grew up in the South, well after the Green Book, guys. Like, I'm an 80s child. I was born in 1985. I'm kidding. So, that's my roots, and I read the script, and I thought it was amazing. And I said, I don't know what I could possibly do, because it's brilliant on the page, and you have two of the best actors in the world. But I will be happy to do whatever I can do and be any type of voice that I do, whatever. I just fell in love with the script. I think you guys did an amazing job, and Thank you, Jonathan King, for this wonderful pot of jam you've thrown me into.
Thank you. All right. We've got a little bit of time for your questions for Peter or anyone up on stage. Let's start right here. Gentleman with his, yes, right there.
When you post the movie on iTunes, when you post the movie on iTunes, would you make sure it has audio description? And the other question I'm curious is how did you make the chemistry work so well? Because you have Viggo Mortensen being a very good Italian American, and then you have Doc Shirley.
Question is about the chemistry between the two lead actors.
Well, honestly, you know, I believe these are the two best actors in any movie this year. I don't think there's, you know, so it wasn't like, you know, I had to mold them. And also, Viggo's from New York. You know, he lived in New York a lot. You know, he knows New York. He's been all over the world. He's kind of from Argentina and Denmark, too. But he's, you know, he's from everywhere. And he knows New York inside and out. So he picked up those accents immediately, hanging around with Nick's brother and fathers and everything. And he speaks, you know, he speaks 9 or 10 languages. And, by the way, writes poetry, in case you care. He does everything. So it wasn't hard for him to get into the thing. He slipped right into it. It was magical. And this is really what I love about this movie. It's a real actor's piece in that all three of these actors, they weren't playing themselves, none of them. You know, usually you could see somebody in a role, it's like them, but a little different in like 5 movies in a row. But these guys were completely different. There's nothing, no part of them. They were acting, and it was beautiful to watch.
Thank you. Is there anyone up in the balcony who's got a question? All right, snooze, you lose. We're going to go right here. Go ahead.
I took lessons for about 2 months with the gentleman here, who also is the composer, Chris Bowers. But I'm pretending to play piano. All right, so, and we had our whole process and as to how to make that be and feel as believable as possible. And, you know, I had my homework, but I just want to thank Chris Bowers for...
Yeah, where's Chris Bowers?
Yeah.
Chris, stand up. He's
thank you,
he's
brother.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
All right, time for, yes, back here. Questions about the letters in the film, very touching. Were they verbatim, and do you still have them?
Well, it's interesting. I have all of them. My mother kept every letter, but it was my father. And one of the letters said, "Keep these letters. I want to read them one day." And she did. And now they're getting read in front of all of you.
All right, let's go for one more right here.
Thank you. Can I start to answer that? Then
Sure.
you can take over.
Can I just repeat the question briefly?
Yeah.
For those who didn't hear, the man was very moved by the film and asked specifically about the script. And with such a sharp script, what did you two, Mahershala and Viggo, add to it in your performance?
Well, you know, because I've always worked with my brother, and it's all about collaborating. And you know, Nick and Brian, we were a team, and they were, you know, they're every step of the way. But I also open it up to the actors in the beginning. And, we went through that script with a fine-tooth comb, and they were adding a lot of stuff early that really, really helped. Like, I just always think of the scene where they're sitting together in the hotel lobby, finally having a drink together, and Mahershala, Don Shirley's telling his story about how he learned how to play the piano and everything. And at the end of it, Viggo says, well, no one could do what you do. Anybody could do those other things. That's like, what are you, a trained SEAL? Anybody could do that. But what you do, no one else could do. And in our script, Don Shirley said, thank you, Tony. And that was the end of it. But, Mahershala read it and said, no, I wouldn't do that because they still won't let me do the thing I trained my whole life to do. It's not enough. So he adds, thank you, Tony, and then says, but not everybody could play Chopin like I can. And it's that kind of stuff that makes it real and better, and they added all those things throughout the whole script. So.
The question was, what did we add to it?
What did you add to the script?
Well, I think if you're a writer, or director, or even if you're an actor and you have a sort of an idea of how the scene's going to go, it's always going to go differently than what you expect, I think, no matter what. Whether the script is good or bad, whether the acting partner you have is good or bad, it's always going to be different than what you expect. The best thing you can possibly do, at least from my point of view, is prepare for all eventualities that you can imagine. Do as much research as you can. Think about everything. You're still going to be surprised, hopefully. Most definitely, if you're paying attention, you're going to be surprised. But what Mahershala alluded to was key, that we got along the first time we met and really looked at each other's eyes and spoke. There was a connection. I felt, without having any idea how you worked, that there was something about the way I could see you on screen and talking to you the first time, that I felt like we're similar in some way. There's something about like the way we go about the job, and I think he has a standard that's something that I aspire to and admire, the way what he chooses to do and how he carries himself, and all that stuff. I don't know, I think it would be great. And that was key, because then things started to happen. But there were things you read it and you go, these two guys in a car and they're talking, and one guy's saying these crazy things and the other guy's reacting at first. But what you don't realize until you start to do it, for example, is that we were driving. Often the camera was here so you could see both of us, or you could see just Mahershala. So that camera was where the rear view mirror would be. So I'm looking up like I'm looking at him all the time and all that, and then I turn around and he tells me eyes on the road and all that. But a lot of times I'm looking at him in the rear view, but I wasn't really, because the camera was there. So I was just hearing him. So we were going off each other's rhythms, and he wasn't seeing my face either, unless I turned around, and then he had to scold me and tell me to turn around again. But so when I saw the movie the first time, it was really fun to watch how delicate, how subtle, and these are things that aren't written, what he did. It's like people have said before, in comedy, it's not the joke that makes the joke work, it's the reaction to the joke or the funny line that makes it work. And especially the early part of the story, it's like I'd say something ridiculous, or not thinking it was ridiculous, but to him it was absurd or offensive or whatever. And then watching the movie, I could just see how, just that little look out the window or adjusting his glasses. I mean, I can't even describe how subtle it was, but I was laughing my ass off when I did it tonight. I mean, I could see it 100 times, and it's just his little, how he reacts to when I insist that it's German and it's not Russian. And it's just like this, he's just so, or even when then your sort of needling side comes out, and how is that? And salty, and it's like, Then I'm looking at you, then I know, but the rest of the time I don't know, and I didn't know as an actor what you were doing. So those are things that he definitely added, and that's from my point of view. So.
I would just add, and I didn't work with Linda nearly as much as you did, obviously, but I felt like that there was a real spirit of collaboration from the top, and that started with Pete. He literally stopped everybody on set, made an announcement, first day of shooting. Hey, listen, if you see I'm not doing something, let me know. If you got any ideas or input or whatever, like I've never in my life seen a director do that. I was like, because all hell could break loose. But,
awesome.
but he set the tone for what was going to be a collaboration. And I think for Viggo and I, just sitting down at the table, going through the script, that I think it really started with respect and love for what brought us there. But then I think that quickly developed into a love for one another and respect for each other's work. I think he really freed me up to by just observing how meticulous he is, how passionate he is. There's so many stories I have about things like him actually picking out that jade rock on the streets of New Orleans, to buying crucifixes. Hey, Pete, check it out. I got like these different crucifixes to go through with you, as far as like what are just gonna, you're not even gonna see them in the movie. They're gonna be like somewhere on the back of the wall, you would never know, but Viggo picked it out. Yeah. Like, kid you not. And so it really started with love and respect for just being there and always holding on to that for each other. And I think because of the way in which he approaches his work, which we are very similar in that way, but his specificity is a little more heightened. A little more heightened than mine.
He was the wax paper sandwich
pain
for
in the
Dr.
ass.
Shirley. The wax paper sandwich, the sandwich wrapped in wax paper for Dr. Shirley, that was supposed to be tin foil, and he's like, no, not in '62, that's wax paper. So.
But you know, it was, as far as things that are surprise you pleasantly in the case of this movie, the whole family dynamic too, you know. Everybody brought something to the guys, the Italian guys that show up in Memphis, you know, and all these people that came down. Some of them were friends of Nick's, and some Pete knew, and there were just these faces that I think to people, that's part of the fun of this movie, is because you're seeing faces that you're not that familiar with, or that you didn't expect to see there, you know. Just, you know, like seeing Sebastian doing what he does there, seeing what that family's like, what Linda does with everybody. Where's Sebastian?
Also, can I quickly...
Anyway, but you know, everybody, and a lot of those people are not actors, right? Were you going to say that?
No.
No, but and you don't know what's going to happen. That could be, it could be difficult, you know. And we didn't have a big, you know, we had a tight schedule and so forth. And it was beautiful because they brought stuff that kept us on our toes, right? We didn't know. I mean, do you want to say anything about them? Okay. I'm going on dead end. No. But
okay. Well, I want to talk about the women here right now for a second. First of all, they're downplaying it. Octavia, you've downplayed it way more than you should have. It's not true. Like, honestly, when Octavia came on board, it changed a lot for us. You know, when she came on, all of a sudden you're getting, like, you know, tension in the town. People are like, oh, Octavia's giving this the thing. And also, I would call and ask her, what about this? What about that? And as it turned out, it was a good script. But she was saying, I like it. Do this. Don't do that. Do that. And that gave me confidence to move forward with things that, you know, I was questioning. So I never had to question that again after you were on. And then it also lets you later on, when you finish it, and you think, you know, this movie could be bigger than what they're perceiving it to be. Then you could call the Steven Spielbergs, because Octavia is the producer, and they're curious what that's going to do. So,
Thank you.
and finally, Linda's the heart of the movie. You know, she is the heart and soul of this movie, and we consciously ended this. That's why the very last shot is her smiling face, because the whole movie, really, that's what it's about, is pleasing her. Because she's disappointed in him, a part of him. She loves her husband, but there's a disappointment in his racism. And, you know, and to see the growth that he got on this journey, and to see how pleased she is by that, that's the beauty of this movie for me. And this is the last thing I'm going to say. I'm sorry I'm rambling here. I've never been on a movie set 1 minute without feeling unbelievable joy and happiness and luck. Like I never got used to it. You know, I've been doing it for 25 years, but it never became like a job. It became like, how the hell did this happen? I can't believe I'm directing movies. It makes no sense, and I never got used to it. I never got over it. Every day, I'm so happy to be on a movie set, but this is my happiest night of all time, being involved in movies. And I want to thank you all for that.
Peter, thank you so much. Welcome to your first film festival. You did good. I just want to thank everyone here. Nick Vallelonga, Brian Curry, Octavia Spencer, Linda Cardellini, Viggo Mortensen, Mahershala Ali, and Peter Farrelly from Green Book.
Thank you.